In this video, I want to talk about something a lot of us were taught growing up, that dating is something you're supposed to ignore. You're told to put it on the back burner, focus on school, focus on work, focus on getting settled. And then, somewhere in your mid to late 20s, you're suddenly expected to show up with a spouse. Not just someone you like, but someone who fits your family's standards, your culture's standards, and everyone else's expectations too. Personally, I didn't face this pressure as hard as some other people. My parents gave me more freedom than what was normal in my community, but I've watched this mindset hurt a lot of people I grew up with. Because when you skip that phase of dating and exploration, a very predictable pattern shows up. You start over-investing too early. You pedestalize whoever gives you attention. You develop a fear of loss and an inability to walk away even when the situation isn't good for you. That's how people become clingy. There's this quiet, underlying feeling of, this has to work, or else. I've experienced this from the other side too. I've dated women who were extremely anxious and clingy very early on. Sometimes, after just a week or two, they'd get separation anxiety almost immediately. And even if I was physically attracted to them, even if they were cool, funny, and interesting, something about it felt off. Not in a judgmental way, more like their sense of self felt fragile. It felt like they were attaching their entire emotional stability to the relationship, and that creates pressure. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel grounded. That's what emotional scarcity looks like. Another reason this matters is timing. When you're younger, your brain is still forming, your personality is still taking shape, and getting basic validation, being seen as attractive, desirable, interesting, does a lot for your baseline self-esteem. This is a dragon you want to slay early on, because if you don't, you risk being 30 and looking around while 18 and 20-year-olds are effortlessly doing things you still feel anxious about. And that gap doesn't just hurt, it creates shame. Figuring this out while you're young makes life lighter. You build social and romantic confidence early, so situations that stress other people out just feel casual to you. You stop burning mental energy on things that no longer feel threatening. That frees your focus for real responsibilities: career, health, purpose. You also develop less identity attachment to relationships. You can still enjoy them fully, but there's a calm detachment there. You're not clinging, you're not desperate. And especially as a man, that grounded detachment is something people, and women in particular, tend to read as confidence and masculinity. As you get older, you stop feeling out of place in these situations. Moments that make other guys nervous, like walking up and introducing yourself to someone, start to feel as ordinary as breathing or tying your shoes. That ease doesn't come from talent, it comes from repetition. Personally, I was lucky. I had an older brother who showed me the ropes early on, but a lot of people don't have that. And those are usually the ones who cling to bad advice, waste years of time and energy, and learn everything the hard way. Because when you don't have dating experience, every disagreement feels like the end of the world. You take everything too seriously. Every text, every tone change, every small conflict feels heavy. And that intensity is usually a turnoff. This affects both men and women, but it hits men harder. Socially, men are expected to lead almost every part of the process: making the first move, planning the dates, setting the tone, steering things when there's tension. So the question is simple: how are you supposed to do that well if you've never practiced? Being with someone who has more experience isn't automatically bad, but when your hesitation and uncertainty become obvious, it creates friction, especially if she's used to dating men who are calmer, more grounded, and more decisive. This is one reason women often prefer dating men a few years older. It's not really about age, it's about perceived maturity, emotional competence, social competence, life competence. Inexperienced women can struggle too, but they're often allowed to take a more passive role early on. They can follow a lead while they learn. And on top of that, Their inexperience is often seen as attractive by most men. Men don't really get that luxury. If you're unsure, it shows. And when it shows, attraction takes a hit. The problem is that there are basic lessons about relationships you're supposed to learn when the stakes are low. When you're young, awkward, still figuring yourself out. And instead, a lot of people are skipping that entire learning phase. There are people out there who are 22, 23 years old and have never experienced their first heartbreak. Now imagine going through your very first breakup at 27 or 28, when careers, families, and marriage are already in play. That emotional hit is way heavier when more is on the line. I went through my first heartbreak as a teenager. I did the whole thing, sitting on the floor, staring at the wall, sad music on repeat. And as painful as it felt back then, I can't imagine going through that for the first time as a grown man, especially if it was with the first or person I seriously dated. That sounds cute when it works out, but when it doesn't, it can be devastating. Dating isn't just an experience, it's a life lesson. When you navigate romantic relationships, you learn emotional regulation. You learn the difference between genuine interest and basic social politeness. You build resilience by dealing with rejection. When conflict comes up, you learn how to solve problems by being reasonable instead of reactive. You learn how to express your needs clearly, how to communicate honestly, how to handle attraction and sexuality in a way that actually fits the real world. And the key part is that you're learning all of this in real time. Your assumptions get tested, some get confirmed, a lot get completely destroyed. You build a sense of self in a sort of way I remember my first real rejection, freshman year of high school. I asked a girl to a dance and she said no. I was bummed out for a few days, but a couple days later, another girl asked me to that same dance, and I wasn't interested. So now I had to learn something different. How to turn someone down respectfully without hurting their feelings. That's dating. It teaches you both sides of the interaction, not just when things go wrong, but when roles reverse too. Another layer to this is context. If you're in a culture where everyone is traditional, you don't really feel behind. The pace is shared. Everyone has that Bollywood mindset. But in a Western environment, or any environment where your peers are encouraged to gain experience early, that changes. Now there's a mismatch in experience. Expectations are higher, the margin for error is smaller, and the learning curve feels steeper than it ever needed to be. Now, I get it. Life isn't all about women. You might be busy, focused on school, focused on work, focused on getting your footing. But personally, I think there's real value, especially between high school and college, in spending 2 to 3 years intentionally throwing yourself into the mix and having that sink or swim moment. Not obsessively, not recklessly, but immersing yourself enough to actually grow. That focused exposure builds confidence, calibration, ease. It gives you reps while the stakes are still low, and once you've gone through that phase, you don't have to force it anymore. As you get older, things naturally slow down. You move at your own pace. Dating becomes lighter, not heavier. Now, obviously, don't be stupid. Some people hear this and take it too far. They don't protect themselves. They make impulsive decisions. They burn money, get someone pregnant, catch an STD. That's not what I'm talking about. Be smart, be responsible, take care of your health, your finances, your future. Learning early isn't about losing control, it's about gaining it. And one day knowing enough to pass that information along to someone who needs it more than you do, and being a guiding light in their life. Good luck. If this helped you see things more clearly, please leave a like. Subscribe for more videos like this, and comment below if this matches your experience. I'll see you in the next one.